No.
I thought this was going to be a conversation about what system you prefer versus what system I prefer.
And inside of a system of preferences, there should be some type of ought or justification for it outside of, because I want that. I just want that.
Smash his face. Let's go.
Your
moral imperative is my preferences?
Who is strawmanning who now? I didn't say that secularism.
You said you want it because of your preferences. That's it.
I did not say that I prefer secularism simply because I prefer it. I can give you reasons why I prefer secularism. And
outside of your preferences, let's do it.
I told you that my preference is a system that allows for multiple types of people. And when I look at America as a democratic experiment, I see success all over the country. It's not a perfect country. We could do better, but I see success all over the country. I think this is a really good system that we have here.
Andrew Wilson just ripped the philosophical spine out of a soy-drenched woke lib and held it up for the crowd like a trophy. Let's get into it.
This is a system that allows for people like you and me to exist and have the same
now I need you to know.
For example.
I need you to note this. And you can go back right this second. You can rewind your own tape and you can see it for yourself. You said in the span of 20 seconds, I did not say that my preferences are the thing which I am appealing to for why it is that I want this form of government. And then went on to say, but my preference is this form of government. So are you appealing to anything external to your own? Stop. Are you appealing to anything external to your own preferences, or aren't you?
No, I would appeal to social utility and my idea of what would be good in service of that goal. I was pushing back against your take that I want secularism simply because I want secularism.
And why ought we follow social utility?
My reason.
Wilson had Hutch spinning in circles so fast he saw his woke ego leave his body.
We ought follow social utility because I believe in pursuing a system
because of your preferences. I believe
that would be, in my opinion, the best outcome for individuals that exist within that system.
So that's your preferences
I try to maximize good outcomes according to what I believe, as I assume you do.
Those are all your preferences, bro.
Right into the full mount. I mean, that was a fantastic transition.
What are the differences between you and me? You have a preference.
I have apostolic. No, I have epistemic justification for knowledge. You do not have epistemic justification for knowledge. You can't justify how you even know a thing, let alone why we should govern with that thing. So as we move in to your preferences, my preferences, it's your preference that we follow your preference. That's your preference, right? But
it is
okay, it's my preference that we don't follow your preference, and that's my preference.
Great.
That's what you want?
That's the whole point.
So then how do we make the determination as to who is right?
We would get into the minutia of why we think our systems are better than the other person's system.
Because
this guy is a straight up clown. He says morality is just based on personal experience. So by that logic, if the Romans thought feeding Christians to lions made society stronger, that was totally fine, right? Because in their culture, it wasn't wrong. You see the problem? If right and wrong are just preferences, then there's no standard to say anything is truly evil. Not genocide, not torture, nothing. It all becomes, well, that's just their truth. There has to be one moral standard, one objective truth that says murder is wrong, not because of someone's feelings or culture vibes, but because it's actually wrong. If your whole philosophy collapses the second someone disagrees with your experience, you don't have a philosophy. You've got survival of the fittest.
Of our preferences.
Exactly.
Well, if it's just because of if there's no justification outside of what is preferable to the individual, it's my preference that I rule everybody. What's wrong with that?
That is your opinion. I disagree.
Well, wait a second. You can't disagree. Yes. My preferences are just as valid as yours.
I'm not disagreeing that you have a preference.
Yeah, but what makes it less valid than yours?
Best outcome for the people that live within this system.
What makes my preference less good than your preference?
When we're talking about something like affirming identities, we're talking about unaliving rates. We're talking about this thing called social stigma.
Yeah, what makes my preference less viable than your preference?
I'm trying to give you an example. So in this specific case, That is an outcome that I don't like. I don't like seeing people
That's your preference again.
unalive themselves.
Your preference again.
Or experience something like deep depression because of social stigma.
Don't you understand how ridiculous this is? Every time I ask you, why should we appeal to your preferences instead of mine for moral oughts? You say, because it's my preference that you do so every single time. I believe he's saying my preference. Everything is my preference, my preference, my preference.
Tap or he's going to break his arm. He's going to break his arm.
Do you have anything that you can justify this on outside of you? Should all moral oughts come from Hutch's brain and his preferences?
Brother, the justification that I'm giving you are things that exist outside of my experience. I'm not talking about my individual experience in this system. I'm talking about a system that most benefits everyone.
And why should we follow a system that benefits everyone?
Because we all want good outcomes in accordance with our philosophical underpinnings.
So our preferences?
Yes.
Heat up like chicken.
Yes, so then you're appealing to nothing more than your individual preferences. All of the world's morality and everything in it comes from Hutch's brain and his preferences. That's what's moral and immoral. Then give me a moral justification external your preferences and why we should follow them.
I believe that all morality is subjective. We don't derive it from, or I don't derive it from scripture. I derive it from my experience as a human being. And my philosophy, the one thing that I try to lead with is empathy.
I don't like watch movie about love. Too much movie make your heart weak.
That's it. And this is something that I was taught when it came to scripture, when we learned about Jesus' teaching. The two main rules that he gave was love the God your father and love your neighbor. So even though I don't subscribe to Christianity at this point in my life, I still gleaned valuable lessons from the teachings of Christ. And I carry those teachings.
But that's all subjective preference, right?
Yes.
So if it's all subjective preference and you can appeal to nothing outside of your own preference, Hutch's preference is the way the world ought to be because that's how he prefers it to be, then Andrew Wilson wants the world to be this way because I prefer it that way. Can you tell me why I'm wrong?
No, I don't think you're wrong.
I'm not wrong.
Everybody has their own subjective take on what morality is.
So my preference then is just as valid as yours.
Morality from scripture. So sure, it's valid. I'm not going to tell you it's invalid.
So if my preference is just as valid as yours, then how can you not agree? You just said it's just as valid as yours. What's there to disagree with?
What can I not agree with?
How can you disagree if my preferences are just as valuable as yours? How in the fuck could you disagree with them?
When we're talking about this sort of thing, what I'm telling you is that I don't doubt that you believe that your moral system is correct. So in that sense, it's valid.
No, you're saying my moral system is correct. Yes.
Not according to my
I'm sorry. That's so weird. Yeah, I thought your preference was that all preferences are equal. Therefore, all moral systems are correct and equal.
No, I'm saying everybody has their own experience with these sorts of things.
Wait, what? Hang on. I'm sorry. Are my preferences valid or not?
They're valid in the sense that if you tell me that this is what you believe, I'm going to believe you. That doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with what you are proposing.
Yeah,
in terms of like
so then my preferences would be not as valid as yours, right?
No, I'm not saying that. No, everybody has their own perspective.
This has to be one of the dumbest, most brain-melting woke takes I've ever seen. Hutch just doesn't get it. No matter how many times Andrew Wilson tries to walk him through it, he keeps face-planting into the same logic trap. If everyone's preferences are equally valid, then nothing is right or wrong. What's good for you could be destructive for someone else. And society becomes this endless loop of, well, that's just your truth, bro. Until one side finally decides to crush the other. That's not morality, that's chaos. And Hutch, he circled the drain for 20 minutes and still didn't get it. Maybe after watching himself crash and burn on replay, something will click. If you enjoyed the carnage, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment because common sense needs reinforcements.